Now, well, in this case, this is where, from consulting with some securities attorneys, we've been able to determine that what we're proposing here is actually the first actually legal venture decentralized venture capital project. In structuring it out, it's been determined that we should probably name this a mitigated risk pool, but our intention is to build this out as a platform that can provide a stabilization of value with a reserve currency that is providing liquidity for various projects that are launching that require that initial seed. And through the migration process we have planned, we're expecting to be able to build up the necessary liquidity to list the final token on its own. So if you are at all excited about the idea of getting involved in what seems to be the holy grail, something that many projects have attempted to start with their various launch pads, actually being able to get off the ground, well, then stick around, go through the migration, and the only way to get in to begin with is to actually already be able to acquire DeFo or BitPower. All right, next one. Yes, we've been actually working with several groups for a while now. I've been working on discussing several projects and planning them out with Cover. Actually handled some of their previous projects and recovery from some of, well, their little exploit. And in doing that, we're going to be expecting to discuss coverage for the entire migration, including the final platform. And we are also engaging the team behind Iteration Syndicate, RainaSwap, and NFY. And so together, we'll be working in conjunction with our team for the Olympus DAO project, which will be launching very shortly, to work together to realize this decentralized venture capital project. All right, next one.
Great.
Well, fortunately, we actually have in time locks from the DevHold team tokens a schedule pretty solidly locked in. Every month, tokens are being unlocked. That provides new tokens and liquidity available to use in the market. Our expectation is to, in the migration process, provide incentives to users that would like to continue the migration and thus would be able to use those tokens to either provide options to cash people out if they so wish, or to provide additional liquidity and ability to migrate over to the final BPT token and the venture capital platform. So this is where I'll be managing this project much like exactly like a professional agile development consulting engagement. So every 2 weeks, there will be something to show. At the initial stages, I apologize, you'll have to get used to, as well, software professionals and investors effectively, that the initial few demos are fairly boring because they're showing core functionality in code. But to maintain that schedule through the entire process and working our best to hit those monthly deadlines of tokens being unlocked, so that way we can have new features, new parts of the migration occurring to take advantage of those additional tokens.
Okay, perfect. They said they couldn't hear me for the first. I just want to let everyone know. The first question asked was, what should we be excited about this DAO? And the second question was, who will be working with Mimir on this project? Do you have any plans for partnerships? And the question that Coyote just answered was, what are the goals and time period landmarks of the project going forward? Next question. As DeFo and BPP token holders, why should I be excited for getting BPT migrating to BPT when it's not even on a credible exchange like Uniswap? Those centralized exchanges it is listed on is mostly bots trading.
Yes, I understand that is the current case with BPT, and that is where, since I see this as a opportunity to have an existing token that already has been defined, deployed, and made available, that can again be leveraged and used. That can then be used as part of the migration process. Yeah, if you were trying to cash it out right now, it would be a bitch and wouldn't actually, well, possibly work for any folks because the exchange is listed on it. But at the moment, if you were trying to cash out your DeFo or BPP, you would be currently much the same situation. I'm proposing a plan in the liquidity migration of pairing BPT with DeFo and BPP and engaging in marketing and the regular demos of our development to, well, incentivize new people to enter into this decentralized venture capital process, which in that case should actually allow the market to discover a natural price for BPT, which for the final migration and the final retirement of BPP, BitPower, and DeFo would allow us to list BPT at that price in the end.
Okay. The next question will be: we will get BPT in exchange for our def hold, but you already tanked the price by liquidating DeFo and BPP to cover your operational costs. Are we going to be compensated in BPT for this value too in case the price of DeFo does not go back up?
Well, in this case, I think I just answered that with the migration process and how we'll be handling or asking for the market to help discover that price. To start off with, we'll be looking at doing this based on the TWAP price for the life of DeFo, and simply because there's not a good point to pick. I mean, there's not a good point to pick on any of that. Of course, everyone's going to try to agree on the highest price, and we can certainly try to do that, but that kind of just ends up creating a chase to the market to try to realize that. Hence, in handling this, would average it out as the top for the life of DeFo and be looking to allow the market to discover that price of BPT by being paired with DeFo and BitPower itself. As far as compensation and getting the DAO up and running, well, that is where, in taking over the project and handling the management and execution of this, have had to secure and engage the proper talent for long term, so that way we can, well, complete the migration fully. Want to make sure that everyone is established and locked in for the entire time, regardless of what the, well, the rest of the market might be doing in that time. As far as for the value of BPT, well, I would argue, given the previous question on its listing exchanges, currently for a lot of people it would have no value. It's not on an exchange where you can really cash it out. Hence why we are looking to provide that value through the migration process. And I think we can see here that we're starting to see a lot of overlap on the questions. So possibly consolidating some of them. I do know the next few are about marketing.
The next few are for me, so I can answer all
Yeah,
three of them at once.
sure, go for it.
What are your marketing plans, if any? DevHold sucked at marketing. Will you do active marketing and post updates to the community? When is the big marketing starting for DAO and BPT? No questions, just more marketing and communication with the community on Telegram and social media. So we plan on a massive marketing push for all of our projects, but this one especially. Within the next 2 weeks, you will see a new Telegram. Our social media will be turned over to the Bit Alliance branding, and we plan on making as many updates, even daily updates, to the community. And we foster an atmosphere of full transparency. So I will be on the Telegram. So will most of the developers, and so will most of the managers. So we want to make it a real effort and a real promise to you guys that we're not only going to market, but we're going to keep in full communication with everybody so you know what we're doing at every step of the way. Because your confidence in us is what's going to dictate how successful this is going to be. And we're going to make sure that that confidence is through the roof.
Yeah, and that's actually where part of one of the expenses we had for setting up, and unfortunately it's still being done because it takes some time, but the appropriate build processes and reporting mechanisms, so that way everyone can, well, get regular reports on that build process. So again, we're still setting up some of that and it'll take a bit of time, but the expectation is that regular updates would appear at least in Discord. We're trying to find a good integration for Telegram to handle that, but at the very least, regular updates that are coming out on development. Initially, most of them will be automated, but it's kind of the point that you can see work being done as it's getting done.
And while also all questions can be asked to us privately, and we're guaranteeing you quick answers, we're going to start doing more of these AMAs. We're going to start being more of a presence to the point where everyone feels comfortable that if they have a question and ask us, that we get back to you and answer your question fully and in a timely manner. Obviously, there's some questions we can't answer, but we'll do our best at every point to always make sure that we do.
Yeah, certainly.
Next
All right.
question. My
Yeah, please
understanding
go
is
ahead.
that wait, what?
No, so please go ahead.
My understanding is that you will drain BPP and DeFo pools after the migration and create liquidity for BPT and list it on Uniswap, which is great. But how will you promote BPT so that people get interest to buy DeFo and BPP to get more BPT tokens for the DAO? I think we've addressed that already. But
Yeah.
as of right now, we're offering a value add for all the people that switch over from BPP and DeFo by September 1st. So if you switch over by September 1st, we're going to be offering 10% additional value from whatever day you switch over. So and also participation in the DAO is also going to add increased value. So
Yes.
we're not so concerned about that. BPT is going to be a good coin to look at in the future, and it's not going to be a question of how are we going to make sure it works. It's a question of how are we going to contain it.
Yeah, and that's where I would say is for anyone looking to crunch the numbers and pick, actually start seeing the amount there. I want to commit that part of our migration process. So again, the expectation is that it will be effectively something akin to a liquidity farming process, but with DeFo and BPP to get in. And so by bringing in that liquidity, being able to farm BPT, by then pairing that with BPT, we should allow the market to discover the price, like I was saying. But further, that's how we would be able to collect that as much as possible, be able to collect that liquidity and move that over. And in doing that, many of the BPT tokens are going to be burned. That is already a commitment that is being made. It's about half of them actually will be burned over part of that process. So that will help increase that value there. Further, because the decentralized VC platform works best with a high amount of liquidity, it most of those would end up being deposited in that treasury there and essentially doled out or made available algorithmically to help supply that liquidity for projects. So the vast majority of that is not even going to be in circulation. It will either be locked up in the treasury, being managed algorithmically to back projects and stabilize that value, or will be actually deposited directly in liquidity. Or really, the vast majority is just going to be burned right off the bat. But that'll be happening as we go through the migration.
There's two questions that are basically related to each other, and then one right in the middle. So I'm going to answer the middle one first. How will you increase
Yeah.
the price of BPT in the future? Obviously, we can't increase the price artificially, and we wouldn't want to. But what we're going to do is we're committing to making sure that the programming is perfect, making sure that it's stable, and making sure that we're completely transparent about what we're doing and offering you opportunities to use your BPT in real world situations and projects. So we're unique in that aspect, and that's going to increase the value of it exponentially. But it's going to also be our transparency and our connection with our community that's going to make people want to join and will increase the value. The next two questions combined. What will come up next? What is your future plan step by step, and what are the development plans? How you create interest of other projects and the community for the DAO?
Well, in this case, well, I think I've covered a fair bit of that on generality what our plan is, but the expectation is that we'll be releasing the first staking platform for earning BPT on shortly after the team tokens unlock on the 19th. That would also be an opportunity that technically, if anyone wanted to simply cash out, they technically could. But we'd be working to incentivize people, and if you would bear with us through that first 90 days, the we are looking to essentially hold that kind of as a long pre-sale, so to speak, of BPT, but only accepting DeFo and BitPower for that pre-sale, and then holding those tokens during the course of the pre-sale and treating it somewhat like yield farming in allotting out the tokens. Kind of a strange mixture of pre-sale and yield farming in that case, with then the plan that when we get to the end, we'll take that DeFo and BPP, we'll go list it with the BPT, and then at that point, launch the liquidity farming platform for, well, those two pairs, again, to earn more BPT. That will continue, and for the next unlock, that's where we would be bringing more BPT in, along with the DeFo that has been brought in. At that point, based on the amount of DeFo that's unlocked and what the market discovers on that valuation, we would be providing additional liquidity in there and then depositing that to farm directly. But in this case, the farming would be used to calculate the amount of rewards that will actually be burned. So additional rewards will be deposited, so that way your earning is maintained, but that is also how we would calculate the burning of BPT over that time. So that way everyone's aware exactly how it's happening, and it is happening while the migration is occurring. So you can see that happening. Then over the next several months would continue that process of more DeFo coming in, more BPT being unlocked, making sure that as we deposit further into liquidity that we then deposit those LP tokens for staking, but in a special deposit that is not earning them, but instead burning them. We would hopefully able to stabilize the price and bring things on further. We'll be attempting to arrange for further liquidity mining with other tokens, and of course can offer those as the community provides feedback on what else they think might be useful. But we'd really like to drive that. The intention is to help us maintain the liquidity and let the market discover the price for our tokens. And then, what? Oh, pardon. Had a question in Telegram directly to me. There's this one. But then from there, we'll continue that process until we get to the end, where the intention would be to essentially work out the valuation of the liquidity pool tokens that people have deposited and provide them the option then of selling those back to the protocol, at which point they would be locked in the treasury. They would not be able to come out, but be listed there as effectively part of the reserve for the platform. Then from there, that is where the extra award of BPT and the final drain of that liquidity to migrate over to listing BPT with, well, at that point, several other assets. We'd obviously be doing Ethereum based on the relationship and the price discovery over the market, and have in mind to negotiate several other tokens to be paired with. At which point, right, that is where those LP tokens would be deposited in the treasury to help define and preserve that reserve for the platform. So, pardon my confusion there. I was not meaning that we were going to keep the DeFo and BPT LP tokens. Those would be liquidated to then provide the ability to buy out and migrate the liquidity to just BPT with actual assets.
Okay. When will BPT be listed on Uniswap?
That would be shortly after the final migration. If you're referring to when it would be listed with something like Ethereum, that would be on the final migration. As I said, it'll be listed throughout the migration process with DeFo and BitPower.
And when, I'm going to read from the Telegram, when will the migration start, contracts launch so people can start migrating? Any timeline in mind?
Yes, like I said, we're shooting for shortly after the DeFo team tokens unlock. It's been a bit to get everything organized and get people lined up. And in doing that, we're expecting that to be the Monday after. Very simple and straightforward process of what we're looking for there. So it'll just be that straight farm that we'll set up, and I'll be phase one until we hit the next team unlock.
I'm gonna answer the next question because I think it's an important one. And it says, why should I trust you? I have a complete loss of confidence in the team's technical abilities to overcome problems, follow through, or to communicate issues to the community. regardless of what's happened up until now, the one thing that you should give the team 100% credit for is that they were willing to admit that there were some problems that they couldn't overcome, and they brought on the people that could overcome them. And they brought on a team that has committed to making sure that we will not only overcome any problems, we'll create real world solutions for you. We'll follow through on the technical aspects, but that will also be an open book marketing wise and communication wise so that the community can rebuild that confidence in knowing that obviously there's problems happen. No one can guarantee you that anything will happen without problems. But as long as you're aware of what those problems are and what we're doing to fix them, I would assume that that's enough as long as there's a real plan in place. So we've committed a lot of resources and a lot of money to the process to make sure that this is going to go as smoothly as humanly possible, to make sure that there isn't a loss to the people who trusted us from the beginning, and that we are going to communicate not only effectively, but that we're going to make sure that the community is well aware of what we're doing every step of the way. And all we can do is say this is going to happen, and you'll be very happy when it does. But we do understand that we will have to rebuild some trust, and we're committed to doing that.
Mhm.
The next question. The default price is going down, which means more loss. What can be done for that, since even if I get a 10% bonus in BPT, the price already tanked by 20%, 25% after you start liquidating assets. So even with a 10% bonus, I'm still losing funds. I mean, first off, that's not really true, because while the price has gone down, it's also gone back up. It's gone down, it's gone back up. And with the announcements that we've been making recently and the DAO being put out there and everything else, I wouldn't just assume that the price is going to just stay where it is right now and that it's going to be a definite loss. But at the same time, like, what we're doing is to create a stable, well funded, and well marketed token that's going to be able to do the things that you've always hoped that it could do. So I wouldn't be as concerned with loss of value by looking at the snapshot as to what it is right now today.
Yeah, and that's right. As I was saying before, we're doing our best to work out what would be a fair valuation, because at that point, there's so many people involved. There's so many different takes there could be on exactly where to take that. I really do think just averaging the price over the entire life of Defo and averaging price of other things over that same time frame, just it accounts for every possible consideration, and seems to me to be a quite reasonable compromise across everything. And
Yeah,
of course, there will always be the fact that the market discovers the price of the other tokens at the end.
yeah. What about involvement of the community in the project? Will there be a voting system in place? You can answer that, but
Yeah, well, that's where for the initial migration, I would say that there's really not much to necessarily vote on. If other projects want to come in and be further, more directly involved, such as they would like to have liquidity listed with BitPayer in advance of the final migration, then that is definitely something to discuss with the community, get input, and have a voting process in place. For the final platform, well, it is all about voting. In fact, technically, the mitigated risk pool can't do anything without you voting and further staking. In fact, technically, it's not even a voting system. It's more of a it's more of a budgeting system or a funding system, because technically other people, quote unquote, voting or staking to support a project doesn't really have any effect on anyone else. Like, their value isn't affected, their risk isn't affected. They If somebody wants to just buy BPT under this platform and hold on to it, it will have an algorithm to stabilize the price. It'll have a system to manage the dispersals and to distribute profits from how that's being managed. But technically, it's not even like directly affected by what's happening on the mitigated risk pool side. Over on the mitigated risk pool side, you're choosing what you want to back, you're choosing to deposit your funds, and you're choosing to take part in some particular venture. And effectively, you're, well, telling the DAO and the DAO executor to go execute on some project for you. Essentially, you're hiring people to do a job. So, in that regard, for trying to vote on anything, really, apart from the initial migration and bringing in projects you might want to partner before we even launch, there's really nothing to vote for because you're not at the whim of what anyone else wants to do. You're in charge of your tokens. You decide what gets done with them.
Absolutely. We've answered this ad nauseum about compensation for the BPT token. So
Yeah, compensation, value, yeah.
okay. When I was prevented from unstaking after my pool had matured, DeFi was valued at over 300. When making the swap to BPT, are you going to be determining the value of the original token lost?
Well, I think covered that before. I'm sure many people would want to try to argue for that, but would also then have to argue, well, how much longer? Like, it like comes up with any court. Like, I'm sorry, but if you're suing for damages, you don't get to sue for the value of the thing that you would have sold for. You get to sue for the value of the thing as it is. And unfortunately, over the life of that, it where best to define that actual value. What I'd like to hope for is that if we offered you to compensate it at that price, you'd scoff and say that we were undervaluing it. But if if our plan goes accordingly and we are able to build that interest and bring that liquidity and value in, then really it should already be there by the time we get through the migration. Sorry it's taking so long, but well, there's sometimes these sorts of plans can take quite a while to execute, and to be honest, any successful venture was not built overnight.
So the next question is why'd you hide everything from your community for months? Problem with staking pools. I can't comment on what's happened for months. I wasn't involved, and neither was Coyote. But I don't think that there was an active attempt to hide anything. I think that problems developed and they were being worked out, and when solutions were identified, we're now telling you the people we brought on and the people that are going to be making sure that the problems go away. So
Yeah.
I don't know if there was any active hiding, but I don't think that in the future it's going to be an issue of even the thought that it could be.
Yeah, can I take this for a
Sure.
moment?
Yeah, by all means.
Yeah, I mean, there's no hiding whatsoever. I mean, my name's Callum. Everyone, thanks for listening. I'm MacroCRG on Twitter. There's no hiding whatsoever. As soon as kind of Deathhold found the problem, they told me immediately, and we worked with BitPower to find a solution because we're partners. And something when I worked in government in the public sector, some of my first manager always told me is come to me if you find a problem, come to me with a solution, and there's no hiding whatsoever. We've been working our backsides off to find a solution and a plan that will deliver value in the future. Now, I mean, would you have preferred us to have told the community and said, this has happened, the funds are stuck, we don't know what to do? Imagine the chaos that would have caused. So there's no hiding. We've all been working our backsides off to find a solution. We found Coyote and Halsey. Now these guys are absolutely top bloody notch, and it's really the Bit Alliance DAO is going to be far better than anyone thought would be possible for these projects. So just to say to this community, stay with us where we're doing everything we can to give you an unbelievable project with unbelievable value. So thanks for your patience and please do stick with us. But to address the original question, there's been no hiding whatsoever. We wanted to come to you with a solution and a roadmap and a plan, and that is what we've done. We are sorry that it's taken a while, but as mentioned previously, great things do take time, but we are here in front of you now with a plan, with a roadmap, with resources. There's going to be a bigger presence. There's going to be marketing, new branding. So I think you're going to be surprised in a good way over the coming weeks and months.
I mean, that's kind of what I was saying as well, is that it wasn't that anyone was actively hiding anything. It's that until a solution can be identified, you can't just put a problem out there. So,
Absolutely.
the solution's been identified. It's going to create value for everybody. We're doing everything that you would hope we would do when we encounter a problem. So I would hope that your confidence in hearing all of this and seeing what we're doing in the future would be enough that you'll see what we're going to keep doing. The next one, I think we've already addressed this, but I'll say it anyway. Coins in the global pool can do multiple times by September. How is the refund going to happen for the value staked now or the value of the token upon airdropping the BPT?
Yeah, I think as you said, we've covered that, and I can only see that the reasonable compromise would be to calculate the TWAP over the life of DeFo, and at the very least be targeting that. Essentially, it'll be driven by the market in acquiring DeFo and, well, essentially cashing out. But that's where we'll be targeting the reward, so that if somebody did want to cash out, then they could just go sell their BPT and would have enough to equate to that, well, average price over the life of DeFo.
I mean, the next question is obviously pretty much the same. When staking in the global pool, it never said if anything goes wrong, we'll reimburse you in 6 months' time with a total shitcoin no one's heard of. You're pooling one token, getting a refund in something of no value that we can't even sell on decent exchanges, and getting this refund in 6 months' time. How do you explain this? So let me address at first. You're right. When you stake in a global pool, what people will usually tell you is that if something goes wrong, that's tough shit. And that's not what we're looking to do. Is that you have a team that actually cares enough about the project and cares enough about creating a long-term solution that they're actually not just wringing their hands and saying, well, fuck it, there's nothing we can do. We've already addressed that we're going to be listing on the decent exchanges. We've already addressed that the 6 month time, the planning that's going into it, is going to hopefully increase value and is going to increase your confidence. So you can phrase it that way if you would like, but as I said, if you can find me a team that would do something like this when encountering this level of problem, as opposed to a team that would just go, well, fuck it, there's nothing we can do. I'd like you to find them and introduce me because I'd probably like to hire them.
I can't think of a better way to say it.
And the last question I think we've addressed is how will you recover the price? And that's only through good management, good communication, good marketing, which we have in place already. So I just say the best days are ahead of us, and I think you guys are in for a wild ride.
Exactly.
Well said.
All right. Well, we've certainly gotten through all of them. I know that there's been some activity on Telegram, but some of that has been kind of addressing or kind of a reiteration of things that have already come through. On a question of airdropping out new coins to everyone, I would just throw out there is new coins of what value to trade where. Like, okay, there's not enough DeFo anywhere. It's currently locked up in time locks for dropping that out. Sure, we could try to send that out, but I guess if you really want to try to do that race to the market, I I consider that we are offering something better than attempt to just drop them on people, hope that you're awake at the right time, and can rush to the market to sell out at whatever liquidity happens to be there in that race. I'm proposing that we instead take a chance venture on actually building something, providing some real value, and being able to not only recover some of that, but build this out and bring in some new blood.
So yeah, I mean, after this we'll conclude, and I just want to let everyone know that starting tomorrow, we're going to build a new Telegram for the Bit Alliance group. Everybody will be invited to attend. All of our traditional communication methods will stay in place, but we're gonna be able. You'll be able to communicate with all of us through Telegram or through Discord or through any other way anytime you want, and expect a timely response. We will be doing more of these AMAs, and again, this whole project is really the brainchild of a lot of very smart people who have put together a solid plan to make sure that this returns value to investors and make sure that it works out well for everybody. And our money is in this too. So it's not like we're looking at this like, oh shit, we only hope we can help other people. We also want to help ourselves. So
Yeah.
I hope this has been helpful. And if there's any questions or comments, you can feel free to reach out to me through any of the other guys. You can reach out to Coyote. You can talk to us. I mean, we're pretty open, so feel free to talk to us at any time. And as I said, tomorrow we'll let out the new Telegram. Ask us for an invite to any other social platforms that we have. And as I said, best is yet to come.
Oh, yeah, certainly. Thank you. Unless if we're still on, I did just see one good question just come in on Telegram that I'll answer real quick.
Go for it.
Saw why was BPT chosen? Because that's what balancer pool LPs are labeled. In this case, it's because it's a token that already exists, already has some holders and activity, and really there's just a big supply of them available in the team. And so, out of all the resources we had available, it was the one that was most flexible and liquid to work with. It has a static supply. It is a secure token. There is nothing in the code that would allow it to be exploited. Therefore, it works perfectly well as an asset. And since our model kind of relies on that consistent supply, and we're looking at generating profits and such from actual execution elsewhere in the platform, we would prefer to have something that doesn't have things like a built-in fee or burn rate. So it actually works out to be a fairly stable and consistent, safe asset to use.
I mean, and from a marketing perspective,
one,
I'll also add that the team behind BPT is one that we're impressed by, we're happy with, and we think will be very good for us and for you guys going forward. So I think that, as I said, when you're looking for a long term project, you don't look for the worst, you look for the best, and this team is one that's really going to pay off for you guys. So if you ask why,
yes.
it's the team behind it is just as important as the actual asset, and I think both are solid.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Elsie. Oh, good.
Sorry, guys. Can I just chime in there?
Yeah, please.
Obviously, Coyote talked about the code and the integrity of the technical. But if you actually look into BitPayer, BPT, the team that originally launched it, it was launched to help people in Africa who are underprivileged, and it had a fair launch. There was no token sale, so I think that the culture of Deathhold and BitPayer and BitPower and Mimir Solutions, it's all intertwined because we.
Oh, shit. Pardon there. It seems to have a technical difficulty where you kind of dropped off. But yes, thank you guys for defining that segue. I do tend to focus on the technical points a little much. But yes, that's another point that was brought up, is that a lot of the work already done by BitPayer, many of the partnerships, relationships already in place, like Bit Alliance, and all the work being done there is, well, exactly what we're proposing and intending for this project. So the ethos is already there, the community is already there, a lot of the relationships and partnerships are already there. So it just seems reasonable to consolidate assets into, well, an already recognized and successful project.
Couldn't agree more. Okay, guys, we're out for the night. Please feel free to contact us with any questions that you may have or any other queries. Look online at our traditional sources for our new Telegram and everything tomorrow. And look, guys, thanks everybody for joining.
Thank you.